How's it going, y'all? My name is Matt. Welcome to Fantasy Filmball with Matt and Dyl, who is here with me. And today we're going to be predicting the Screen Actors Guild Award nominations, which are dropping on Wednesday morning. So let's talk SAG. This is a little bit tricky. I think this is where we're going to start to see some of the big snubs come up, and we're going to start to see how the race is taking direction. SAG always does weird shit. Like, they did Jared Leto last year, and I think they did Jared Leto the year before. So maybe we'll see Jared Leto again this year for Morbius.
Morbin time. You know what category Morbius could show up in? It could show up in stunts because you know how he flies down the stairs, and him and Matt Smith has a cool dance. But sadly, stunts, they don't recognize choreography. They don't recognize dance, which is weird. I don't know. I feel like that's part of stunt work is getting together and dancing. But like I looked and like West Side Story didn't show up. La La Land never showed up. So to me, that means they don't care about dancing. They're solely here for action. We have some interesting stuff here because this is a category that has no precursors. This is the only time we see this all year long. There's 5 nominees. I built a little kind of short/long list here that we can kind of pick from. So I'll run through those real quick. And this is in no order. This is just random jots of memory or thoughts. I have Nope, Multiverse of Madness, The Northman, RRR, Avatar: The Way of Water, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, The Woman King, Top Gun: Maverick, The Batman, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. I feel like our 5 is in this bunch somewhere. It's just, which 5?
Oh, it's totally in this bunch. I went through, looked at all of your lists. I think you've got the top 5 in all of them, but I don't know what the order is. So I think let's talk about some things that we think are safe. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is safe.
I agree.
And Top Gun: Maverick is safe. Those are the only 2 that I think are safe.
I would say Batman would be my 3, but I also could see the angle for Batman being snubbed. So I would agree that Everything Everywhere and Maverick are the 2 safe ones. And then after that is where you get some more variance.
Yeah. I personally don't have Batman getting into my top 5. Rounding out my top 5, I've got my 3rd most likely is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. That film seems big enough. It seems like it's really likely to make it in. Then we've got The Woman King, which feels extremely, extremely strong here, especially because I think it's going to do well at the SAGs. Overall, they love Viola Davis. And lastly, my final one, which I think is very snubbable, is RRR. And I'm going to make a bold claim here. If RRR misses stunt ensemble here, it misses Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah, I can see that because the acting branch is the biggest branch at the Oscars, and that just shows that, hey, the love may not be here as widely as we previously believed. But I agree. Woman King, Black Panther, they feel pretty good. Viola Davis. And Marvel always usually gets at least one movie here. So I think I agree. That's probably 4 of our 5. And then I would just lean Batman over RRR for that 5th spot. But I would not be surprised if The Northman surprises because that is a very stunt-heavy movie.
Mm-hmm. Or Avatar. But the thing about Avatar is the stunts are really cool looking, but they're very well choreographed. The thing is, though, it's CGI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say Batman, RR, Way of Water, Northman. One of those is your 5th. Take your pick out there. Multiverse of Madness, no, it's just here because why not? And Nope would be a cool one, but think about it. What stunts really are there besides riding horses and being sucked up into probably like a wire? Yeah,
so I would say if RRR misses here, Batman makes it. And if RRR misses here, then that's detrimental for Oscar chances because it shows that the industry isn't resonating with it as much as critics are.
Well, you know what the industry is resonating with? Everything Everywhere All at Once. And they get acting nominations from that movie, and one where it's been winning almost unanimously is supporting actor. So Ke Huy Quan seems pretty safe for a nomination at SAG. Wouldn't you think?
I agree. I think Kwan and Gleason are the 2 ones that I'd say are entirely safe. And Keegan, I also think is safe.
I would agree. Those are my top 3 in terms of a nomination.
Mm-hmm. The question is, what comes after that?
There's a long list of people out there. And the ones I at least narrow down to be like, these seem like SAG-type picks are Ben Whishaw, Brian Tyree Henry, Eddie Redmayne, Judd Hirsch, Paul Dano, Tom Hanks, and Brad Pitt. And at this moment, I think I'd be leaning towards Hanks and Pitt because Pitt hasn't missed much. And if some people out there are saying, hey, SAG could go for Elvis. Hanks would have to come along. But also, I could see this SAG being a redeemer spot for a woman talking. And then Washall shows up. Some maybe supporting actresses show up. Ensemble shows up. To me, though, I don't see both Fableman boys getting in. And honestly, I don't know if I see one getting in at this moment.
Yeah, personally, I'm going to say Eddie Redmayne because he feels like Jared Leto in The Little Things. He feels like Jared Leto in House of Gucci. Eddie Redmayne feels very safe.
Yeah.
But then I'm torn between Brad Pitt and Brian Tyree Henry. At this moment, I'm going to say Brian Tyree Henry because I think ultimately he's going to make the Oscar list.
I agree with that point about Redmayne. I think Redmayne and Hanks are fighting for the same spot. They'll go with one of them.
Yeah.
It's just, do they go Hanks or they go Redmayne? And then the other spot...
Well, Redmayne already has some precursors, whereas
he does.
Hanks, the only thing that he has is a BAFTA long list.
That is correct, where Redmayne also showed up one.
Yes.
I just think I'm leaning more into the Elvis love here because a lot of people are predicting it for Ensemble, and I feel like Hanks would have to come along there, where I could see Good Nurse just being blanked out here. But I would not be surprised if Redmayne showed up. We had the same conversation when it came to the Globes, and I was wrong there, so I'm ready to double up on that and be wrong here as well. So I'm going Kwan, Gleason, Keegan, Pitt, and Hanks for my 5.
And I'm going Kwan, Gleason, Keegan, Redmayne, and Brian Tyree Henry.
So we moved from a category that seemed pretty easiest for us to pick to a category that's really hard for us to pick, and that's supporting actress, because in my eyes, there's one lock, and that's Carrie Condon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Carrie Condon. I also think Jamie Lee Curtis is basically a lock here.
I think if she wins Globes on Tuesday, yes. But if she loses Globes, I don't know if she would be a complete lock for me.
I guess so. There's so many question marks that I have in this category. But Jamie Lee Curtis is campaigning her ass off. Mm-hmm. And that's why I see her making it here, because she is putting in the groundwork. And I think that actors will respect that and they'll see what she's doing. But after that, this is just a fucking disaster of a category. Oh, you know what? I would also say that Angela Bassett, I think, is pretty safe.
I would put Bassett, I would say she's pretty safe. I also have Curtis getting in my 5. I just wouldn't put her in the lock tier. I think she's very solidly number 2 on like a list if you're like, okay, rank these people. But I wouldn't put her in like that absolute lock tier as Condon. But yeah,
I guess Bassett, I could see a miss, but I it's hard to believe. But if there was a surprise miss, it would be Bassett or Curtis.
Yeah, I think Condon's in a tier of her own. And then it's Curtis, honestly, like just outside of it. And then we have that next tier where Bassett is for me, where it's a bunch of people who's like, they should probably get in, but also they probably shouldn't get in. And that's Bassett, that's Mulligan, that's Monet, that's both women talking. And honestly, that's Hong Chow as well. And then this tier and below them, Sue. I would put Sue below them as in the ones who have like, okay, obviously there's a crowd that loves these people, but they don't have a backing, whatever it is. And that would be Sue, that would be Palmer. And honestly, probably now that's both women talking actresses, and then DeLeon moves up into that tier that I just mentioned before. So move DeLeon into tier 3, and then both women talking down to tier 4.
Yeah, I'm really torn here. Because my heart wants to predict women talking, but everything has been telling me that's not a thing that's happening.
Yeah.
But generally, like I said, I think the 3 ones that feel relatively safe to me are Condon, Curtis, Bassett. After that, I think Monet has a really, really strong chance. And if Monet doesn't make it here, then Glass Onion is not in for Ensemble. But then my last spot, I'm so torn between Jessie Buckley and Women Talking, Carey Mulligan in She Said, and Dolly DeLeon in Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, I think I'm around the same part. I have Condon, I have Curtis, I have Monet at 3, and honestly, I think Monet can make it in without Ensemble, but Ensemble doesn't make it without Monet. And then that brings me to my 4, 5, 6 spot, which right now I guess I'm leaning Bassett, Mulligan, and then Buckley, but also I could see all of the miss for DeLeon and Sue. I don't know.
I don't see Stephanie Sue making it. I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to put Jessie Buckley in here.
And I think I will go with Mulligan, and I guess I'll put Bassett at 5. I don't know. I'm probably very much just putting my biases in here, but I guess I'll cave here and put Bassett at 5 just because it did get Globe. She did show up on the BAFTA shortlist earlier today. So yeah, I think I'll go Condon, Curtis, Monet, Bassett, Mulligan for my 5. But Mulligan can easily miss for Women Talking. I just need to see who they actually want from Women Talking to show up.
And I'm going Condon, Curtis, Bassett, Monet, and Buckley as my 5.
And that moves us into lead actor time, where we go from a category with 1 lock to a category with 3, arguably 4, depending on how risky you want to take it, 4 locks. And you got Butler for Elvis, Fraser for The Whale, Farrell for Banshees, and honestly, all 3 of these people are win competitive.
Yes.
After that, you get to a slew of people who take your pick. We just saw the BAFTA long list earlier. The BAFTAs will they pull random names out there to fill out a 10. So who will the SAG do to fill out a 5? Could they go with our projected Oscar people of Bill Nighy and Tom Cruise? Could they go with more critics-type picks of Paul Mescal and Jeremy Pope? Or could they go populist with Ray Fiennes or Daniel Craig?
That's actually very interesting. I think if they did go populist, they'd go Craig. Personally, although Bill Nighy is in my 5 for the Oscars, I don't have him at SAG. For one thing, because apparently there's been some screener issues with Living. It's not an easy film to find at this point. And it's a very subtle performance. It doesn't feel like something that SAG is particularly going to respond to as an American branch. So I'm going to say Cruise makes it here. And my last of the 5 is going to be Jeremy Pope. Because I don't see Paul Mescal making it either. Too British. Too British.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I have Butler, Fraser, Farrell. I agree with Cruise. I don't know. You said something a few months ago that still has rang with me about Nighy, and you said that he has a lot of love in the theater industry, and theater people can vote in SAG. And that,
can they?
To me, I thought that's what you had told me after I saw Living.
TV.
Okay.
Because with SAG, he has a lot of love in the theater community. I mean, that said, there's a huge overlap between Broadway and the West End and TV, because a lot of those actors work in TV when they're on weeks off from shows.
Okay. But yeah, I think I'll go Nighy at 5, but I would say more so than Pope upsetting would be, I think, a possible Craig or Fiennes, just because the star power can help over, and both those people are the ones getting the main praise. Craig, you can say Monet's also getting praise, but they're both getting a lot of praise from their films. But also my case against Craig would be he didn't get nominated for the first, but this category was a lot weaker than in 2019. So yeah, I think I'm going to put Nighy at 5. That's just the one that makes the most sense to me, but maybe Pope can come back and upset Cruise again, or we'll have to see.
Yeah, I guess what I think is I am not ever going to predict the same 5 that I expect for the Oscar to be the 5 that I have here. So I'm going to go Butler, Fraser, Farrell, Cruise, and Jeremy Pope.
Fair enough. That brings us to actress, a category that I think we agree on our 5, maybe not. Are the ones I would consider locks are Yeoh, Blanchett, Williams, and Davis I would say is a near lock. Almost. Those would be my top 4. In the 5th spot is what's open to me. Is it Deadweiler? Is it Robbie? Is it DeArmas? Or is it Olivia Colman?
Yes. Well, I just said that I'm never going to predict the same 5, but currently my 5 would be Michelle Yeoh, Blanchett, Williams, Viola Davis, and Danielle Deadweiler, which is my 5 for the Oscar. So I'm starting to think Danielle Deadweiler could miss here in favor of Margot Robbie.
I could see that. I don't know. Robbie's someone I just don't feel like would miss here, but I don't know who to take out. Because in my head it would be Davis, but SAG loves Davis. She never misses. So I can't take Davis out. I can't take Yeoh. Can't take Blanchett out. I can't take Williams unless I just say, screw it, we're putting you in supporting, which no one's done so far, so why would they do that here?
No one's done.
And so, yeah, it would come down to Deadweiler or come down to Robbie. And I don't know. I'm going to rock with Deadweiler at the moment, but I would not be surprised if Robbie or even DeArmas shows up here.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just going to go with the logical 5 here because it's hard to predict a snub here. There's no snub that makes too much sense, like an actor. So if that diverges, I know Nighy is the one that's going to diverge. But in lead actress, I don't know if it's going to be that easy. So
here's the thing, though.
I don't know who would miss and who would get in.
to back up your 5, I would say Davis is less likely to get in for the Oscar than she is here, obviously. Yes. While Robbie or Deadweiler is more likely to miss here than at the Oscar. So, like, predicting your 5 for the Oscar could work here because that's not technically the top 5 right now if you're looking at, like, overall stuff at the moment.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, so I guess I'll lock in Michelle Yeoh, Cate Blanchett, Michelle Williams, Viola Davis, and Danielle Deadweiler.
I am the same, even though I think Robbie or DeArmas easily could come in and kick out, I guess, Deadweiler, maybe Davis, but I don't think so. That brings us to Ensemble, though, which I think is the toughest category here for the day, even harder than Supporting Actress. Because, in my eyes, there, at this moment, is only one lock, and that is Everything Ever All at Once. You asked me 2 days ago, I would have said Fabelmans. I would have said Women Talking is probably a lock. They're dropping fast. And in addition to them, we also have Banshees, we have Glass Onion, we have Woman King, we have Maverick, we have Elvis, we have Triangle of Sadness even. There could be even another surprise. Wakanda Forever could jump up. But to me, I think everything I just mentioned are probable contenders. Maybe Babylon and Resurgence, but if Robbie's missing, a Pit is a borderline. I don't see how it could get in here for Ensemble.
Yeah. This is a really hard one, and it seemed so clear-cut for a while, but it's really not. So I'm going to start off by saying, yes, Everything Ever All at Once is a lock, and it's probably going to win. Not probably going to. It's like 90% going to win this.
Unless next closest thing... It's winning.
Yeah, but it's not going to miss here.
Yeah.
The next closest thing to a lock here is Women Talking, which, despite the fact that that film is tanking everywhere else, Ensemble is still strong. I don't think anyone could watch that. And whereas I think the argument for why it's missing in Supporting Actress is because no one can decide who the best one in the film is.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. Everyone can admit that, wow, this cast fucking kills it. They're amazing. They're so powerful. They are such a good ensemble. So I don't see that missing here. After this, that's where it gets tricky. The Fabelmans makes sense to be here. But the Fabelmans is underperforming everywhere, just like Women Talking. But the Fabelmans is... it doesn't have the same argument as to why it's missing in some of these acting categories. It's not like people can't decide who the best is between Hirsch and Dano. It's just that, like, they're just not making the cut in most places. Then there's Banshees, which Banshees is making all of the acting categories everywhere. But guess what did that last year and did not make SAG Ensemble?
Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog. Banshees has an arc exactly like Power of the Dog right now. So I don't think Banshees needs to make it here, and I don't think it will. And then we've got some of the populist choices. We've got Glass Onion, which has the critics lead on ensemble awards. It is winning all the ensemble awards. It's one of the most visible films that's in this shortlist that we've kind of created here, which is a big up for it. That said, last year, the critics' winner of ensemble was The Harder They Fall, which did not get nominated at the SAG Awards. Then there's The Woman King, which... I guess that makes it here, but at the same time, like, does it need to? It's not as popular a film as some of the others. I know you have an argument for Top Gun. I don't really see it, but what do you think about Top Gun?
I've dropped off of this from before because it seems like the tide for Top Gun shifting over to Elvis. But yeah. I will be very mad if it does get in because I did have this at 100 to 1 odds, and I just checked Gold Derby now, and it's down to 35 to 1 odds. So, was on the ship before it was popular at least, but yeah, I would say they're going to go with a populist movie that's being carried by one actor from a movie they love. It's going to be Elvis over Maverick at this point.
Yeah, I see Elvis as a strong possibility because it's a very big cast, and we know that one of the actors in it is probably going to win here. So, like, but, okay, I'm going to give my best shot at a 5 right now. Everything Ever All at Once, Women Talking, and then I'm going to say Fabelmans, Glass Onion, and Elvis.
See, I got Everything Ever All at Once. I got Women Talking. I don't know what to do after that. I don't think Glass Onion's getting in. The first one couldn't get in. in a weaker year for ensemble, arguably. So I think this one's probably going to struggle. And like you mentioned, Heart of the Fall missed last year. Glass Onion can follow suit. It's Netflix as well. And then you bring in Woman King, which I feel like is going to get in. So that's my 3. And then I think it's between Maverick and Elvis and Banshees and Fablemans. Those are your 2 groups, and it's going to be one of each of those to fill out the 5. And at this moment, I want to pick Banshees because the argument you can use against Banshees, you can use against Fablemans. They're both smaller cast, but Banshees people are going to be recognized throughout this show, while Fablemans people might not. And that may be a reason to lean Fablemans here because you're giving recognition to actors that you're not giving recognition to specifically. And then, as we mentioned before, leaning more Elvis towards Maverick for that populist movie that's being carried by one performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. My argument for Glass Onion here is that Knives Out, as much as it had a similarly strong ensemble, they didn't really get all their moments to shine, whereas in Glass Onion, I think every single character really gets their moment. In Knives Out, it's a lot of interrogations. That is a movie where the lead characters are very clearly Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig. In Glass Onion, it's much more blurred. I feel like everyone really gets a chance to shine.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. I would love to see it here. It's one of my favorite ensembles of the year, but using my little predicting methods here, I'm going to leave it off. But
fair enough.
As the biggest Elvis fan, I think, in our server, it deserves it over Elvis.
But what do you guys think is getting nominated for SAG Ensemble? What are your predictions for snubs, surprises? I guess we're going to have to see on Wednesday morning. But until next time, my name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.